Welcome to the Thriving Scapegoat, a podcast for women who are cast as the problem, when in truth, they were the truth tellers. I'm your host, Julie Cielo, Somatic coach, author, and guide for women healing from complex trauma, family enmeshment, and the invisible wounds of being scapegoated. If you ever felt misunderstood, exiled, or blamed for dynamics you didn't create, if you've done the deep work to break the generational patterns and you're ready to reclaim your voice, your body, and your life, you're in the right place. This is where we stop over-explaining, stop performing for love, and start living in alignment with what's real. Here, we talk about nervous system healing, shadow work, emotional sovereignty, and what it takes to not just survive your past, but thrive beyond it. Because you were never too much. You were never the problem. You were the disruption to the dysfunction, and now you get to become the woman who rises because of it. Let's begin. Hey, today I'm talking about the issue that was actually the straw that broke the camel's back for me just 4 years ago. The inner critic, and why success doesn't silence it. Welcome back to the Thriving Scapegoat. I'm Julie, and in this last episode, I talked about estrangement and what happens when healing requires distance from the people and the systems that shaped you. But what often comes next is something much quieter, much more challenging in many ways, and more persistent. The inner critic, the voice that doesn't go away just because you've done the work, the one that questions you no matter how much you've done, even when you know better. Today, I want to talk about why that voice exists and why it can actually get louder after you start healing. And what finally shifted things for me personally, I did what a lot of high-functioning women do. I worked on myself for years in exercise, talk therapy, yoga, meditation, plant medicine, personal development, divorce. I built a life more than once. I built companies, and from the outside it looked successful. I actually built not one but 2 multi-million-dollar companies from the ground up by myself. The first one I built while I was supporting myself and my ex-husband financially from a very young age, never relying on family support. I left home with just $800 in my pocket. I was disciplined, capable, resilient. And still, that voice was there telling me. Didn't matter how much I had achieved, post-estrangement and divorce, and after exiting company number 2, it didn't matter how much I proved. The voice didn't soften. If anything, it got more refined. So where does it come from? Because the inner critic isn't actually about performance, it's about survival. And when you grow up in an environment where love is inconsistent and approval is conditional, rules are rigid, and you learn to monitor yourself constantly, to anticipate, to adjust, to stay within the lines of what's acceptable. And over time, that external environment becomes internalized. The critic isn't random, it's patterned. It's the voice that once helped you to stay connected, to stay safe, to stay successful, to stay included, to stay praised, to stay needed, to stay valued. But the problem is that once the thing that kept you safe before is keeping you small now. So let's talk about why talk therapy just isn't enough. And honestly, this is where I hit a wall. I thought I had done so much, but because I understood all of this, I could explain it, I could articulate it, I could actually coach others through it, but my body didn't change. I still felt tension and pressure, underlying anxiety, and a sense of unworthiness I wasn't enough, a constant sense of needing it to be right, to finally heal already. And why wasn't I enlightened enough to not react to her? I finally realized at 35 years old that I feared she would murder me for speaking my truth. That was a huge wake-up call. Yet it wasn't for another decade before I actually went no contact. And it wasn't over stuff that happened in my childhood. No, I had forgiven her for all of that. I had to be functional. It was because I actually found out the truth of something that she did to her parents and her siblings. And when I confronted her, she denied it. And this is something that I see over and over and over again. You can have insight and still feel stuck. No wonder. No accountability to bring the forgiveness that trained your inner critic, programmed you to believe and made you into a decent person by toxic people in society that love to judge and criticize the victim but not the perpetrator. It's also because the inner critic doesn't live in your mind and your thoughts. It lives inside your nervous system. So what shifted for me was realizing that I couldn't think my way out. We cannot outperform our own self-esteem. It was about how I felt about myself after I closed my second company that I worked so hard and had so much wrapped up into. So much to see things not go well through the entrepreneurial struggle of picking bad business partners. So I needed a different approach 4 years ago. One that didn't just analyze my mind, but actually worked with my nervous system in a way that therapy and meditation wasn't holding that harsh demonic voice in its place. This is what led me to real somatic work, not just yoga and breath work, but real somatic therapy. And eventually to training in somatic experiencing, because for the first time I wasn't trying to override the voice. I was learning how to understand what was underneath it. The tension, the contraction, the vigilance, my reactions to others and myself. And slowly, the body began to feel safer and the voice didn't need to be so loud. So healing for me stopped being about fixing myself or improving myself or becoming a better version of myself or creating something quickly to be enough. And I started becoming about coming back into real authentic relationship with my body, listening instead of correcting, instead of controlling. And what I found was that confidence doesn't come from silencing the critic. It comes from no longer needing to obey it. So if you're listening to this and you recognize that you have a harsh inner voice, the one that keeps pushing and questioning and telling you to get going, tightening, contracting, I want you to know something. You're not doing anything wrong. You're likely working with a nervous system that learned very early on that it had to stay alert in order to belong. And we all just want to belong. And that's not something that you fix with more discipline. It's something that you shift through the body. And this is the work that I do. And through seasonal somatics, I help women, especially in midlife, begin to unwind these patterns at the nervous system level and become the inner confidant they always yearn for externally. Not by pushing harder, but by creating the conditions where the body can finally feel safe enough to let go. So if this resonates with you, you can explore ways of working with me, either one-on-one or joining one of my upcoming classes or seasonal immersions. All of that is available to you at my website. And even if you're not ready to take that step yet, just begin to notice. Notice when the voice shows up. Notice what happens in your body, where it's located. And that awareness alone is the beginning of change. This is the Thriving Scapegoat, and this is where we stop trying to fix ourselves and start coming home to ourselves. See you next time. If today's episode resonated, that's your entry point. Healing scapegoating isn't just insight, it's nervous system work. And this is what I teach through seasonal somatics, a body-based method that helps you regulate, reconnect, and move with real change. I offer weekly group classes, both in-person and online, immersive retreats, and limited one-on-one mentorship. You can find all the details in the show notes. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs it, and make sure you're subscribed. Until next time, choose truth over belonging, self-trust over self-abandonment. You didn't just survive this to stay stuck. You're here to thrive.